But these are my kids. And if I have a kid that I'm trying to teach and I'm trying to make sure that they're getting the education that they're getting, and I realize that they're not getting their services, that is a problem for me because I can't teach them if they're not getting the services that they're supposed to be getting, which will also help them to implement or to retain knowledge or to understand what I'm trying to teach. And I told a student, I said, you need support. Even if I got fired, at least I know that she is not the only child that's probably going through this.
Benjamin, thanks for joining us.
No problem. Thank you for having me.
We're so glad to have you on So Your Boss Sucks Teacher Edition. We're excited to really appreciate teachers, and I'm excited to hear your story. So I want to first start with, what made you want to go into education?
I think education for me came from just helping others. I would honestly say the first time I actually felt interested in teaching was during my internship at City Tech. This is where I had to work on my biomedical informatics degree for my bachelor's degree. And what happened was they paired me up with high schoolers. So I had to kind of work with them and teach them how to implement different integrations of softwares, platforms, and then being able to kind of teach them the ropes so that by the time they get to college, they feel prepared. And then when I realized, I said, you know what? I could take those skills that I have and teach it to other kids. So I said, why not? But it was also realizing that in the STEM field, especially in a lot of schools, especially in New York, um, they don't have a lot of STEM teachers or even just science teachers, period. And especially as a black male, as a male figure, that's something that I wanted to kind of address. So I kind of put myself in that category and told myself, you know what? I want to be part of that system and I want to just share whatever knowledge I have to kind of bring up the next leaders and generations for the new year coming up.
So I'm surprised to hear that because I feel like STEM or STEAM or what everybody wants to call it, science,
Steam, STEM,
technology,
yep.
art, and
Hmm.
math, right? I feel like we've been talking about this for like 20 years. Like, how is this not how is this still a struggle in the school systems?
I think realizing that STEM, there's a lot that goes into it. But I think the main thing is I noticed that in order for you to know STEM or to just know anything science related, math related, or engineering related, right? Anything in the tech space, um, the problem is that we have a lot of students that are having challenges when it comes to reading and just
Mm.
writing. So if you're trying to teach a student or teach, scholars how to implement this new strategy within a software, or you want them to know how to code, or if you want them to kind of run simulations, if they cannot read, then that means they won't be able to follow instructions or the directions being implemented to them. So I think the main issue is realizing that, you put these kids into certain courses and you want them to learn, but then you also realize they're not on the same level. For example, if I'm teaching a sixth grader, the sixth grader might be on a first, second grade level. So does that mean that they can understand sixth grade level? Not entirely right. And I think that's where the problem actually came out. Noticing and realizing that while I'm trying to educate students, there's a lot of challenges that they're facing on their end. And realizing that when it comes to reading or understanding context, that's something that is really breaking the system down. And it's been addressed many times, but I just feel like it's just been kicked to the back burner. And I think that's the biggest issue that they've been facing in the educational space.
So we're going to talk about your bad boss, I promise, but I'm still like
I
blown
got
on
you.
this literacy thing because I saw a report recently that talked about how in America, our literacy rate is going down. Like, I'm like, how does this even, how do you get
Ooh.
and only read it at second grade level? I'm real. And you know what? I'm not surprised because having a child in a public education system with an IEP, um,
Hmm.
and, a special plan for his learning, right? An individual education plan, IEP.
Hmm.
I had to intervene at a certain grade level where I'm like, he's at this grade level, but he's still reading at that. And you all keep saying it's fine. And I'm looking at these goals. I don't
Mm,
think they're aggressive enough. That's not fine. And we ended up having to move him to a different school because they were fine with just floating him back.
just floating. The problem is transparency sucks. There's no transparency. The
From
transparency
who?
that a lot of, I mean, the system, the school, sometimes I feel like when I'm walking in, there's a lot of schools I worked at. And I think the issue is that when you're trying to sell a dream or trying to tell parents that, oh, this is what we're offering, this is what we're doing for your child. And then as an educator, when I walk inside the school building, I'm seeing something different. And then I ask myself, would I want my own child to be in this network? The answer has always been no. Always been no. I have not said yes to anything regarding the schools that I've worked at, only because it's not just like not saying that there aren't good educators out there. There's a lot of educators that know how to teach. They know how to create a safe space and environment for students to learn. There's teachers who will speak up, but that's the number one thing for me. I gotta look out for my kids, and that's also telling me that I have to make sure that there's a relationship building type of thing between not just me, but the network, the leadership, the students, and the parents. And the biggest issue that we'll dive into is when the parents are needed, where are they, right? Because we keep getting the well, you didn't tell me that my child was failing. But then again, I always come with receipts because messages, we use those softwares. We use Parent Square. This is where parents are supposed to implement and enroll, make sure it's on their phone so they can get emails anywhere. But we realize that there are some parents who just don't respond to teachers because they're saying, well, if one teacher is calling me, another teacher's calling me, I'm getting tired. Too many teachers are calling me. We get a lot of excuses about a lot of things. But the one thing I've always had to do, I had to address it to parents. And we've had this big issue that parents will only reach out to you when it's parent teacher conference. We'll get into that. But that's something that always, it just, it gets me angry because I'm just like, I've been reaching out to you weekly. I send out information on Parent Square, Google Classroom, you name it. We send out data from School Runner. This is where all of the important information, data, analytics, all the data that we need and resources to kind of see where students are. We send all those things out to parents. But do parents respond? No, some of them do, but not all of them. And it
So
becomes an issue.
so this gets to, you and I talked about this. I have named it, at first it was going to be the trifecta of leadership, right? So in terms of
Hmm.
being an educator, I feel like what I'm hearing from a lot of the educators we've talked to is that there's this this multifaceted effect on who's your boss. You have
Mm,
the state or federal, administration. Then you have your internal
mhm.
administration at the school. Those are two different levels
Two
of
different
boss,
levels.
right? But then you also have the parents, right? As
Hmm.
a recipient of your product, if you will, and the children. So it's really like a quartet, if you will. And
Yeah.
I think I think for me, the question I have is like, how do you, as a educator, deal with the level of stress that comes with the multifaceted demand of your energy, especially when a lot of those demands are in conflict?
Listen, I feel like building relationships are like it's key for me. I think when you build relationships, it drives and it kind of allows you to create that safe space for parents. If you want to talk about relationship building, that's something that I've always done ever since I've been an educator.
Relationships
The
how
school
with the administration, with the parents.
with well, parents had to come first. The way I see it is the reason why, and I've spoken to a couple of my colleagues about this. The reason why the schools are still standing up today, we could talk about government funds, we can talk about funds that are being implemented into the school system and the networks. But the reason why they're mainly standing up today is because of parents, right? If the parents didn't send their child to the school, the classrooms would be empty. If the classrooms are empty and the teachers are standing there, the teachers can't work because they're not teaching anybody. So if you have no teachers in the building, then all you're gonna have standing there is just a building and leadership and then the network and the board members. The problem that we're having is that relationship building, I realize, goes on the back burner. They only do it for a certain time because remember, the recruiters, the recruitment process, you would think it's just the recruiters that need to recruit people and talk to parents and call parents.
So
But I
when you,
realize it's
for context though, we're talking specifically about charter schools.
well, charter schools and public schools. There's a lot that goes into that recruitment process, but I also have seen and been not part of the process. It's been different where they want teachers to kind of get students in the building.
Hmm.
And there's been a lot of pressure into that. The one thing that I know I've done, right? I've taught kids that had siblings on top of siblings. I've taught their brothers and sisters, and the relationship has always been the same. For me, I love keeping it real. There are a lot of things that the network and leadership wanted me to do. And because I was one of those teachers that my foot was down, I would not put myself in a position where I would take away from my integrity because I know what these kids need.
Like
I'm the
what?
one in the classroom with
Give
them.
me one good example of like I'm not doing that.
All right. So there was a particular situation with a student who came in, and this is like an issue that there's some parents that's like, look, if anything happens, you call me, you let me know. Like I got parents that are, I need speed dial, you need to call me. The student came in, and they came in pretty late, and for me it's like when I don't see certain students that I know you've been coming in but then you didn't show up, it's like what's going on. So what I decided to do was there was a time period where I gave students independent work, because during the independent work is when I could like go on my laptop, try to make a few phone calls, try to look at data. But I took that time to reach out, and what I found out was there was a message that was supposed to be sent out to the teachers of my grade, but it wasn't sent out. A particular situation happened, but I didn't know because you didn't send an email out. And I called the parents and told them like, look, I hope so and so is good. If you need anything, let me know what's going on. The parent basically told me, um, oh, they didn't tell you that this particular thing happened. The child was in the hospital. We didn't know anything that was going on. And then it got to a particular point where we just thought that something, maybe the parent just didn't decide to bring them to the school because of something else. So this communication thing, because I want to make sure that in the area that the school is in, there's a lot of shootings, there's a lot of fights, there's a lot of other schools that get into a lot of dangerous activities. My main thing is to make sure like my students are safe. So come to find out, it was a situation that there was a fight. We didn't know about it because all the teachers were gone. So just imagine as we're trying to walk kids out of the school building, there's a whole bunch of kids that are standing across the street. I don't know them. They don't know me. I don't know them. But there was a situation that took place. Now you want us to walk kids to the bus stop in a situation where are we protected? No. By law, are we supposed to? Like, I don't mind helping and supporting, but there was this aggressiveness of like, we want you guys like at this time, this day, to walk kids to the bus stop or to the train station. Like, it was a part of the contract. And I've had this situation where I've been fighting with them, and there was times where my boss, it was like, look, they go to great team leads. They've had them all over, charter schools and public schools. And it was like, look, we're getting, written up, or we're getting, the text message that, you're not going to the bus stop. I'm not going to the train stations to kind of help out. And mind you, sometimes I walk with kids because I'm just like, I'm always talkative. I go out, I meet parents, I talk with them. But it got to a point where it was just like, y'all gotta do this. That aggressive talk, like, I have to.
So they were
And
bullying you. You were getting bullied.
it was bullied.
So,
They know that's what it was.
but here's the question I got, because if it were we don't have to say the location, but you're in one of the
No,
five
different
boroughs.
schools did it. Uh-huh.
So you're in one of the five boroughs. Which one is it? Brooklyn.
Brooklyn, yeah.
All right. So you're in Brooklyn, right? And kids have a fight, and the area itself. has some challenges, right, in terms of
Mhm.
crime, shooting, whatever. If it were your child, would you want the teacher to walk them to the bus stop then?
So let's put it like this: if there's a child that you know that loves to start trouble, that loves to bring trouble to the school,
Mhm.
we address the situation, and the school still doesn't take some measure
Measures.
to get into it, then why should I put myself at risk? Because at the end of the day, if a child is talking smack, you putting yourself in that position. Like you're trying to act like you're big and tough, which there's a lot of middle school kids right now that think they're so grown that they could do whatever they want. This is the attitude they bring inside the school buildings. And then you got people when they see it, it's kind of like when teachers are calling for support, which is another thing, but no one don't intervene. Someone, oh, let's use the walkie talkies. Oh, you want us to send you a message when the kids are fighting in the classroom. But then it's like, should I jump in? Should I stop the fight? Of course, for me, I've been in situations where if a fight was about to break out, I'm gonna jump in between, and I'm a strong dude. I will lock you in some corner until somebody comes. But the other part of it is that not everyone is like me. But then you also got to think about the classroom. Everyone has to be safe. I'm trying to create a safe space for my students, and then you got something like this happening. I'm calling for support, but then you trying to send me a message that I can't even run to. Like, oh, what is it urgent? You asking me if it's urgent? If I'm calling for support, I'm not gonna have time to type up in the
Yeah.
message box or call you. Oh, well, the walkie-talkie. You see, the thing is, y'all are trying to come up with so many excuses because when you hear something or a teacher calls on a walkie-talkie, like I'm calling for support. There's times I can't even get to the walkie-talkie because I gotta keep somebody on the headlock, I gotta keep somebody by the door just to make sure, and I'm trying to like in the hallway, yo, I need support. But it's like we're in a meeting. We'll try to send who we can. What, like what? So the question is, so the thing is, they want us to be the dean of our own classrooms. I think every school that I've worked at, this has been a thing. Y'all could be the deans of your own classrooms. I said that's perfectly fine because I want my classroom to be safe. But the other part of it is that my role, my teaching job, my description, my role is for me to go in to educate kids. My job is not for me to try to jump in and write, letters and try to figure out what the issue is. If there's an issue, of course, my instinct is telling me I got to protect the other kids. But when I'm calling for support and then you trying to ask me if it's urgent, you asking me questions like, no, ma'am, no, sir. If it's urgent and I'm telling you to come, get up out your seat because a lot of them just sit down all day. A lot of leadership people, they just on their computers typing. I don't know what you typing, but I know I'm working hard. It feels like 24 hours in a day teaching kids and trying to educate them while trying to deal with the battles happening in the classroom. And if you feel that, oh, when we're calling for support, and the thing that you can say is if it's urgent, no, if we're calling for support, your instinct should be let me stop what I'm doing, let me run to the classroom and try to figure out what the situation is. It could be small, it could be big, but this is what we've been going through.
So I have just one serious question.
Mhm.
Is the American school system expecting too much from teachers?
Yes, they are. They are. Um, Teachers can't teach anymore. That's how bad it is. I've spoken to. I live around an area where there's teachers out here that they retired. They've been teaching for 40 plus, 50 plus years, and they said the one thing that disturbed them was on a job application. They would ask you for some of them that how are you when it comes to dealing with behaviors in the classroom. The one thing they told me was that we never had any type of behavior challenges in the classroom because we didn't have to deal with that. There was a level of respect where it used to be. There was a level of parents being parents and not friends to their kids. There was a time when a lot of parents, it takes a village to raise a kid. There was a time when that was a big deal. If you did something wrong, your mama gave the teacher, gave the next door neighbor, gave anybody that was in the neighborhood
Permission
the permission to
to
make sure that they do what they got
address.
to do to adjust. Yeah, because if my mom was at work, she was working as as a nurse. And it's like, and my dad was around too, but that's another situation because he left me when I was starting high school. It was a big situation. But I think going through that challenge and realizing that the level of like just family friends, like they always looked at. If you had your pants sagging and somebody caught you in the neighborhood, they gonna handle it for my mom. And then
Yeah.
my mom would get the news. And then I think that's what it used to be. Right now, teachers are putting on so many hats that it is causing a burnout. And a lot of teachers don't realize it. I say, you teachers aren't even getting paid so much money. And you think that allowing, and some teachers are, some teachers don't want to speak up. You got some jobs where it's just like teaching jobs where it's like, oh, the pension, I want to be able to do this and I love teaching kids. It's okay to love teaching kids. There's no problem. The problem is if I'm a science teacher, I should not be teaching ELA, English language arts. I should not be teaching history. I should not be teaching gym. I should not be teaching Espanol, like Italian class. That's not my role. And a lot of schools, that's what they're going through now. They're
Because
trying to
there's a
give teachers
shortage.
multiple
There's
roles.
a nationwide shortage of teachers, and
Yep.
most of it is because, aside from compensation, which is a large issue, and for
Hmm.
most employees, if you can't compensate me, I'm not coming to this job, right?
Hmm.
Aside from that, the conditions are very interesting, especially from what you're saying. So here's what I want to know, because so we didn't talk about
Hmm.
your background as a science teacher. So you leave college having had this experience, loving to inspire kids, and you
Hmm.
go back home to teach. Is that what happened?
That's what happened. I think the other part that I left out was during my internship when I was working with NSF, is National Science Foundation
Mhm.
research experience. So they choose 8 students throughout the whole CUNY system. So you got a lot of schools. You got City College, you got Brooklyn College, you got every CUNY school that you could think of. They choose 8 students. This research experience that I had gave me an eye opener, and it allowed me to realize that there's not many people that look like me in that field. I've been chosen, and I'm always going to be grateful to one of my professors. They were great professors I had, but this one professor, it was my statistics 2 class, and he was a math teacher. He used to work in Wall Street, but he actually came into teaching because he wanted to teach kids to kind of work on formulations on numbers. He was a numbers guy. He said the one thing was that he saw that I was also, the way I use numbers, I use it as a musician because I played in church. I was always part of, I was playing drums, I was playing bass, I was in a marching band.
I see
And
you call
so
the numbers in the
music,
chorus 253, right?
yeah, I was
My
like,
husband will be
I was
very mad
calling
if
out.
I got it wrong.
And I'm
But don't
like,
get me wrong, he would
these,
do it from the
I know,
pulpit.
she
He's
said,
like,
you gotta, yep. They just call it. Then the organist gotta do some keynote. They gotta drop it. The pastor doing some, listen, it's a whole work. And this guy, this teacher, Mr. Singh, I will never forget what he did for me. The day of my finals for statistics 2 class, for my biomedical informatics degree, he pulled me out and he said, listen, I know that you need an internship to graduate. You've been doing so well in my class, not because of your passing, but it's the way that you think outside the box. He said, You love music. You use music in a way for you to understand statistics too. I didn't like statistics, but I love math. And sometimes it all depends on the professor. If the professor could make it engaging for you and make it fun, and he used to put numbers with relationships, because a lot of college kids, you got people in there with they loving dummy and got boyfriends and girlfriends in there, and he used to put it into a mathematical equation. I don't know how he did it, but that was his skill. And he said, listen, I set up this meeting, and I want you to have this meeting with the director of the NSF program, the math teacher that was there, and the physics teacher. He's actually the physics head. We had Professor Louis Mark, and then we had professors who they allowed them to be part of the NSF, and they would be our chaperones. So he said, "Look, I know you're gonna pass this test anyway, so I'm not gonna have you take the finals. I already gave you an A." In my mind, I'm looking at him. I said, "Man, what you doing, man? I'm trying to take this test. Even if I got a 85 or 90, because it was a challenging class, but it was fun." He said, "No, no, no. I want you to go to this meeting. When I went to the meeting, I didn't know exactly who I was going to run into, but it was the director of the NSF. And he said, listen, we have one more spot left and we need somebody from this school. Your teacher is a colleague of ours. We trust him because anybody he sends to us, he must have this great loving for you, my friend. And we want you to see if you would accept this position. Now, this NSF experience, I got paid from it, which
Nice.
meant I didn't have to work, 9 to 5. Even if I was given a job opportunity, I wouldn't be able to do it because this was actually like a hybrid internship. So I was working from home, but I was also going into City College because City College has an engineering department building, and
Mhm.
all the tools that I need to work on this particular projects was at the building. So when they're telling me like all this other stuff, I was like, only 8 people out of the whole cutie, and I wanted. He's like, listen, he said, listen, I know sometimes people need a week to think about it. We will give you the week. But we know with your stature and what he's been telling us about you, you could say right now, we'll start signing contracts, get everything going. Everything was paid for. My flights, anything that I bought and spent out of my pocket was reimbursed.
Nice.
NASA actually funded the program at City College. So you're talking about
Wow.
astronauts. They funded that program, and it was just like, okay. I went home, thought about it, got it. I didn't. I don't even think I took an hour. I called them and said, "This is an experience that I want to be part of." We went straight into it. When I got that internship, this is what opened my eyes to realize that there's not a lot of people that look like me. I had to run and work with my PhD mentor. We're running models, we're running projects. I had to use my skill to teach high school kids to kind of support them on their dream to become an engineer, or if they wanted to work on like mathematical or be a math teacher or something. And all of this kind of driven me, like I was driven to kind of tell, I was telling myself, I said, no, 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 I don't even think my neighborhood, I don't even think people in Brooklyn know, or just New York, period. But I said, I gotta do more. I said, if I'm getting this opportunity, of course I'm gonna share it. I'm gonna bring it into my neighborhood. So by that time, I said, everything I'm doing, I went out to these conferences. I swear the amount of faces that will look at you because they're not expecting a black male figure or just a black male walking into conferences where it's like there's not many people like you over there. But I'm in there. I said
Yeah.
I'm there for a reason. And I think that taught me a lesson that when the opportunity is given to you, you got to share it. You gotta break those barriers. And I think that's what allowed me to kind of get into teaching because I did not see many people like me, but I also knew I had a lot of resources that would help a lot of kids to get into the particular fields that are really booming right now.
So I've got a question. What do you think from your perspective, your experience, because you got your degree, you went back home, and we'll talk about the difference between you as a black teacher and some of the a black male teacher and some of the ones that and some of your counterparts and colleagues. Why do you think more black men don't go into teaching?
I just feel like they haven't been exposed to it. If you look at a lot of neighborhoods, there aren't many centers or any, you know, outlet for just black men, period, or just minorities to kind of just learn. Like now, everything is online. Like if
Mhm.
and that's if you know I've taught kids that parents didn't have internet at home. I've taught kids that, parents only had cell phones and they weren't able to get a laptop. And a lot of schools do allow kids to bring home laptops, but that's
Yeah.
something that a lot of schools tend to shut down because kids are breaking them. Apparently, they're saying that they're being stolen, they're not bringing it back. So the resources that are needed for a lot of, black men, period, to kind of get those resources, or just minority, because you even have females in STEM, which I'm so happy about because it should have just only be a male dominant field. We need females. Don't
For
just assume that just because you see a man in this particular field that woman can't do it, right? And I think that's also been a whole big topic as to like which field is for who. But I always tell myself, if you're able to share the knowledge and you're able to, share the wealth of knowledge that you have, it could go a long way. I just feel like a lot of schools, they're not doing that. One particular thing I could tell you, we want kids to come into the school building. We want them to sit down all day. A lot of schools take away their gym, period. And you're talking about middle school kids. Even if they were in high school, these kids
What do you
cannot sit
mean?
in school.
They take how they take away gym?
Well, let's put it like this. I've been in a school where they had gym before, but then they decided to take it away from the curriculum the following years moving forward. The reason behind it is it all goes back to kids not learning how to read, or they're not able to read properly. The grades are looking horrible. They're not able to run assessments the way they're supposed to. So they're like, look, we got to focus more on trying to help these kids learn how to read. People will talk about COVID. We can talk about COVID all day. But even before COVID, a lot of these kids were, if you could look at the statistics, they were still low. The progress, it did not shift. And this is the reason why when conversations come up about the US being the lowest when it comes to like the educational space, where kids, assessments and grades, we're at the bottom. And the fact that we've been going through this for years and now we see there's a lot of stuff happening with the educational department. They try to flush everybody out. Then a lot of parents, a lot of schools, I've seen a lot of school leadership people coming out like, oh, we're gonna lose this funding, we're gonna lose this, that. And then it came back to me that even in certain schools that I've worked at, when you have parents that come in as like, oh, thank you for the services that you've been providing for my kids. If a kid has an IEP, they need speech, they need this, that. But then you
Occupation
come to find
therapy.
out
Mhm.
occupational therapy, and then you come to realize that what there was times when I had to ask, like, look at myself and look at them, like, what services you talking about? Because this child never left my classroom, period.
So
They've been in my classroom.
so let me go back. So you're telling me that one of the schools that you work for was
Hmm.
telling the
Well,
parent
look
that they
now.
were getting services like
Yep.
occupational therapy, speech therapy because they needed extra development. Perhaps they were neurodiverse, they had ADHD,
Hmm.
autism, developmental delay, whatever the label is, that
Yep.
they were telling the
Hmm.
parents that they were getting services and they weren't.
Yeah.
That's grimy.
They said they were getting the services, and
And
parents is
how do you
like,
minister? Because for me, that's the ultimate bad boss. I can't stand. I think it was episode 4. I talked about it. Season 1,
mm,
episode. I think it might have been episode 4. Go back and look. I cannot
I
stand a
got you.
liar. There are a lot of things I can deal with. If you are incompetent, that's number 2. But I can at least deal with your willingness to learn if you want to. I
If you
cannot.
want to.
How
Hmm.
do you deal? How do you deal when your administration is lying to people? Did they like so when
Listen, we I'm gonna tell you now, there were I felt like every time I walked into the school building, a several school building, I just felt like it wasn't that I was the madman. It was just that the looks that I used to get, or just like I knew there was a target on my back. Always. But did I care? No. I said I know it's a job. I always told myself I could always get a teaching job. And it's not about being cocky. It's just that when you're
supply
looking at a
and
black male and you're
supply and
talking about
demand situation?
STEM,
Yeah.
science, you're talking about y'all ain't got nobody in the school buildings. It's vacancies. Y'all just throwing people. They even throwing paras, paras that aren't, paras are teaching. That's where we're at now. If they're trying to get any and anybody to come into these schools and teach, that's when the educational system's going down. Like y'all have no decency to kind of refresh or go back into what is the issue and what is the problem. And the only solution y'all can come up with is just like, yo, let's just throw any and anybody because we need somebody, we need an adult to be in the classroom with the kids. Because at
But
the end of the day, if there's
man, I
no
wanna
adult
go
in
back
there, you
though.
can't do nothing.
I wanna go back
Hmm.
though to that. So you're talking to the parent. You're like, they're not getting services. They look at you and say what?
Nah, I told him straight up. I said, the services that you think that your child is getting, they're not getting it. Oh, what do you mean? So, a particular situation when it happened, I actually went to the SPED director and I said, listen,
Tell
this
everybody what
parent,
it is.
So one of the special education directors, they're basically the ones that's in charge of like IEPs. They're in charge of having meetings with parents and just the district, or just to try to find ways to come up with these plans, and trying to see if a student is supposed to, get those services.
Mhm.
Sometimes they have to evaluate them. They have to make sure that they pass all these things
Mhm.
that are in place to see, oh, this child is eligible to have these services.
Based on the
Um,
state and federal regulations
State and federal
around it.
regulations.
Mhm.
So now I'm like, so this parent said that their child has been getting all the services. They said that this is what they were told, but they've been in my class. So, and the thing is, I know my student schedules, because what I try to do is, if a student has speech or whoever it is that they're supposed to get picked up by, I have a relationship where I'm able to talk to them, because I'm trying to work with them. If I know that a student is going to be out of my class for over 30 to 45 minutes, trust and believe I'm gonna have a packet, or I'm gonna have something prepared, so that when they do come out the classroom, I'll talk to the teacher or whoever has them. Like, look, I know that they're gonna be out of class, but if you can fit into your schedule, and when there's a time that you can have them go over, let's say for example vocabulary, which is like a big red flag in the school system, where vocabulary it's just now getting in there, where they're trying to hire people who are like vocabulary magicians in a way, and they just come in to just see if a child is using vocab. This is how crazy it's getting. And I'm like, you expect a child to know vocabulary, but they don't know how to read? You gotta help me understand, because it doesn't help that way. So
So you went to the special ed teacher, the special ed
mhm.
director, and what did they say?
So the only thing they told me was that they will have a conversation with the parent, because at the end of the day, there are a lot of special directors, like special education directors, that would say there's a lot of things that they can't do on their end, because they're limited to things that they can do, which is true to some degree. But if a parent assumes or thinks that their child is getting the services and they're not, this is where it gets tricky for them, because I will be the person, I will send out emails. I'm not gonna just send it out to the special education director. I'm gonna put the board members, I'm gonna put the leadership, I'm gonna put my crew. If I'm teaching with sixth grade teachers, because we're all teaching this individual student, and I want to make sure that everyone is aware. But then
Oh,
when
wait a
that
minute, you
happens,
put the board, you said that. Ben, you put the
listen,
board.
listen, because at the end of the day, there's no reason why, like, even the board, like, they know what's going on. Listen, we went through the amount of schools that I've been in. I have not We've went through several principals, leadership. I'm talking about a principal that can't even manage a school or be in a school for like a year or 2 years. They keep switching people all around. So think about it. Things get switched. If you switch into a new member, maybe the system is changing, so they trying to do something else. But what I've seen is that there's no way that you don't understand and know, because remember, it's a business. I always look at educational things as a business. There's a lot of money that goes into each student that has services, especially have IEPs. There's a
Mhm.
lot of money. We ain't just talking about $10,000. You're talking about 10,000 plus going up there. So the money looks good to those people that's behind closed doors. But for teachers, we're struggling trying to figure out and trying to work with a student that is supposed to get services, and they're not getting it. So when I addressed that, right, the issue was, and this is why I knew there was a target on my back, because it got to a point where I was getting the emails back like, look, I should not be sending, this type of emails to, let's say, my colleagues, and or I shouldn't be sending out the emails to so and so. But the thing that took me out was, well, the board members appointed a lot of y'all leadership people here. The leadership, you guys appointed, you get the principal, you get the deans and all that stuff, and then the principal will help out to make sure they get the teachers. So I said, at the end of the day, aren't we supposed to all be a family or a community that's trying to make sure that we can find the best solution for our students? So if this is a situation that I'm teaching a child that is supposed to get services, and I realize, based on what the parents are saying, that, oh yeah, they've been saying that they've been getting services, this and that, and they haven't, then I'm going to address it. This ain't
But
no, let
you
me
didn't
go.
just address it. You literally lit the match and told everybody. I'm surprised.
Everybody that's part of that process. Yeah,
I don't.
everybody that's part of that process. Because at the end of the day, you know what they always used to tell us? They always used to tell us, just imagine if I'm teaching a student inside the classroom and I know something, there are teachers that know a lot of things, but they don't address it. And what happened is, let's say they come inside the school, they do an audit, and a lot of schools they don't get the real audit. Because there's certain audits that they will shut that whole school down if they need to. Because when the government finds out, oh, we just imagine that I'm sending you money, but you're not even working on a product for me. Like you're not even doing what you're supposed to be doing. And you're lying to parents. You don't think that's some type of fraudulent activity that y'all are doing up in the school system? So we just collecting money, but we're not really helping out the kids.
So okay. Um, so you put everybody on the email, which I'm loving the courage of it. I think I might have did it differently because I
The,
probably would
well,
have like
well, the
listen,
there were
that's
the
it.
respectable people. The respectable people, like the people that I'm not going to say like just everybody, because remember, this is where the one thing I remember you mentioned the word boss. There's a lot of schools that I worked out. There are too many bosses. One boss is going to tell you, if you're going to anything when you send out an email, these are the only people that I want you to put on here. Then somebody else will say, "What they talking about? This is what they told you? No, no, no. This is who you supposed to send it to." Oh no, this is so when there's a lot of different bosses, you got your manager, you got the principal. Because remember, the principal got a boss too. That principal's boss, that boss got a boss too. So when it goes down the line and you realize everybody's telling you different things to do, the only thing that I could come up with is somebody is going to have to know something because this is important. So I said, since y'all can't come up with a solution, I'm just going to put all of y'all in there because some of y'all are telling me that you don't want so and so to be up in there. And I'm trying to figure out why. But then it's like, that's my boss. So when I tell my boss, she's like, oh, that's what they told you. So then my boss is looking at it like, yo, they really trying to go behind my back. Then there's this whole thing. I said, listen, I don't care what issues, what internal problems or challenges y'all are faced with, but these are my kids. And if I have a kid that I'm trying to teach and I'm trying to make sure that they're getting the education that they're getting, and I realize that they're not getting their services, that is a problem for me because I can't teach them if they're not getting the services that they're supposed to be getting, which will also help them to implement or to retain knowledge or to understand what I'm trying to teach. And if they're not getting the services, you could send out an email to one person. This one person would take years to respond back to you, but you across the school, you across the the classroom for me. You can easily just walk. Like I have a concern, I will come find you. Sometimes they're not there. I'll send out an email. You can find time to come inside the classroom and talk to me. You can talk to the student. But what I'm realizing is that this is not for the kids. This is bigger than what it's supposed to be, but it just confuses me when it has to do with the kids, that so much money has been sent to a lot of these schools, but what are they doing with it, right? And what services are being provided?
So I'm still stuck on the you sent the email. So you sent the email. What happened then? Because
I sent out the email. Basically, they always start off with, "Oh, Mr. Joseph, thank you for sending this email. We really appreciate it." They send you the whole nonchalant stuff. And in the email, basically said that, mind you, the people that's on the email, it's the respectable people. These are people that you're part of the whole process when it comes to the sped stuff. Apparently, they were saying that there are some things that are confidential that shouldn't have been in there. For one, where it says that a child was not receiving services. So you're trying to tell me that I'm supposed to keep something that is, it's become detrimental to the child because they know, even the child knows they're supposed to be getting services and realizing that, oh, I was told that I was supposed to get picked up around this time. Do you know where the person is? I said, I don't know because I don't know who, if they assign anybody for you. So I said, so you want me to keep that to myself? The child knows. And then for me, it's like the parent is thinking that the child is getting the services, and the child is telling me that there are information that when they spoke to her, that she's not to go home to have this conversation with her parents that the school will call. So just imagine, they're kids. You go to a kid and you tell them, like, look, I don't want you saying anything to your parents. We're gonna take care of it, and then we're gonna have a meeting with your parents. So don't say anything. It's like
that
we want you to delay telling And a lot of kids are vocal, and that's why I respect about them because I build relationships with these kids for years. Listen, I've won 2 years in a row at this one particular school and another school 3 years in a row for family coordination and communication as a teacher because I build relationship with kids. And when I'm straight up with kids, when the amount of things that kids will tell me that a lot of leadership and people that's in the office and people that's like in the network would say to them, but they're also scared because one, you got a lot of immigrants, right? You might say something that might make some people mad, and you just never know if they might end up doing something to kind of break a family apart. You just never know. We have a lot of kids from Russia, a lot of kids from Italy. We had kids from India. We had a lot of kids. And the thing is, what was scary is that when she told me that, this is where it kind of got to me. Where I was like, no, 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 no. I have to address the situation. So in that email, everything was said, but the problem when I looked at it was mainly based on how that the information that I put out that the child wasn't receiving services, because it's true. The child will tell you, I have not been taken out of class. The
So
child ain't lying because
so what was the so they asked the baby to lie, not or not to withhold information from their parents was
we're former, so you lying.
right
Hmm.
from their parent, which oh my gosh, if any school system, Jesus help us. So
Yes.
we're asking children to conceal. We're teaching them how to conceal at early ages.
Yes.
All this wraps up. Does the baby ever receive services? What did they do to you? Did
So that one school that I was at when it happened, the parent called me that same night, because I had a conversation with the student. This is after school, and I told her straight up. I said, "Listen, um, I have a daughter as well, and at that time she was around like 1 or 2, and I'm like, I can't imagine that feeling of not knowing what's happening to my child at school, and the school system is trying to tell you to not say nothing to mommy and daddy, but to keep it a secret." I told her straight up, I said, what you're going to do, because I took notes. I took everything down. I typed up everything. I even took voice recording because I even asked the permission, like, can I record you? Because at the end of the day, there are going to be things that they're probably going to say. And I say, you're not going to say that this child is lying because I got records and I keep records of everything. Which child gets taken out of the class, what time they get taken out, and when they're supposed to have services. This child has not had any type of service from the dates that they put on whatever documentation that they had. And I kept everything locked in my
they were
email.
trying to cover it up? They
Huh?
were they were trying to cover it up.
They were trying to cover it up.
And so
And what the mother decided to do, she called me that night and she said, listen, if I have any other schools that she wants to transfer her daughter out, and she just feels like she doesn't want to go down the rabbit hole because there are things that with family and people that especially with papers and stuff. I'm like, I'm not even trying to get you to. It's like she wants to fight, and you can hear it in her voice, but
mm,
she also knows that she ain't got the resources, she ain't got the money, even if she wanted to fight it, this and that. So she's just trying to make it
she's looking
easier for
to
her
live
daughter.
yeah.
You know what I mean? And you don't want your daughter going through that stress like mommy, something happened to my mommy because she was trying to fight for me. And a lot of parents are gonna fight, especially but when they got the resource, but she realized that she does not have that support system that she needs. And I told her straight, I said, you need support, even if I got fired, at least I know that she is not the only child that's probably going through this. Because if you're trying to have a child to lie about the services and to not say anything to you, there are many other kids that are faced with that challenge. And parents, these are some of the parents that stay on top of communication. She's one of them. That was the one parent. But I think where she got misled was that her daughter felt scared for her own mother because even the daughter knows about the situation at home. So she said she doesn't want mommy to like go crazy. She doesn't want her mother to go up to the school and do something that might affect whatever she got going on at home. So she said the best thing she could do is just hold in.
So what it sounds like, the environment that you were in was not only bullying, I would say lacked integrity, didn't support you. Like how did you survive and what did you decide to do in that toxic environment? Because that's toxic. Like when we define the idea of like having a boss or work environment that sucks, like you've named like a lot of the characteristics. What did you decide to do?
So for me, I still taught, and then something told me that um, there are people watching. And I always told myself, if I could bless a child, one child, until they graduate, I think that was like a bigger blessing for me. I think throughout all the crap that was happening, I said, I want to see these kids graduate, but I also want to make sure that they get the help that they need. I teamed up with a few of my colleagues. There's some colleagues I was like, I ain't trying to get up in all that crap, but. I said, but you teaching the same kids I'm teaching and you see that they're struggling. So I said, a lot of y'all and a lot of the teachers that I've taught with, yeah, they weren't parents, single life party and doing all, so they won't understand. But I said, listen, I'm in a situation, even if I didn't have a child, I still feel like it is my duty as a teacher to have my kids back. And if they're not getting the proper treatment that they're supposed to be getting, and then you got parents being lied to about, them getting the services, then that becomes my issue because these kids are in my classroom, right? So what I decided to do, I stayed another year, and I came to find out that there were other kids that were in the same situation, and the problem with that is when we send out emails or parents know, because remember, parents in the neighborhood know each other. So if one kid is going through the same thing, they speak to the parent will talk to another parent, another parent. So there were parents that came up to the school. Um, they thanked me, and it wasn't like them trying to come into the school and beat up people. It was more like, we're gonna wait here, we want y'all to get the documentation, but by law, there's a whole bunch of stuff that goes into it, especially if you're talking about special education, IEP documents, and all this other stuff that you got to get. Parents were so fed up because it's like, there's a reason why my child can't even read a book. I try to ask them when they come home from school if they could tell me what they learned today. And the only thing that they could tell me is from two or three subjects.
Yeah.
So, you know what I mean? So I think addressing the situation when you talk vocally and you're having this one-on-one conversation with the respective people, but then you realize nothing is getting done, what do you do next? Then it's like, if I'm supposed to talk to the special education director, then it's like, who's their boss? You got the principal. The principal is holding down the school, so the principal is like, you got to tell me, you got to lock me in the meeting, you got to put me in the emails. Then it's like, oh, we can't put this person, we got to put this person. So there's always been this thing where they wanted me to choose who should be in the emails to know what is going on. And I'm like,
Well,
but
that's
y'all,
you put
oh,
them
what?
all on blast, bitch. They started monitoring who you put on the emails because
they,
you
start, they,
you
start, they started monitoring. And I feel like, the crazy thing about it, I've gotten so much more respect because let's say if something is happening on the eighth grade level, right? But remember, a lot of those kids, I taught their siblings on top of siblings. So who do you think they still got a relationship with? Just because I'm not teaching y'all no more doesn't mean that I don't still have the communication with parents.